There we go. Volume is on. Close these extra tabs. Oh, that was a stream. I think I'm still live. Don't know how to do this. There we go. Alright, we're good. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Print Hammer. We are doing something special today. The bad news has been rained down upon the creators, and rather than pointing fingers, I thought this would be a great time for us to look at what happened and analyze it from our perspective as print fiends and the perspective of sculptors, and how we can sort of avoid this in the future. So first and foremost, there were some DMCAs dropped. We'll go over them individually on all these mind-numbingly exuberant tabs. We're going to talk about who got DMCA'd and sort of why, but if I'm giving you the general gist beforehand, most of the stuff from the Leviathan set has been targeted hard. Obviously, that makes perfect sense. They're going after their new stuff. This is the IP that is most easy for them to create profit from, right? When you have to go and through legal processes, that costs you money. So doing it for, say, files that are they're already sold out of and they don't plan on producing on their website anytime soon, it doesn't really make much sense for them. So the Leviathan stuff, kind of sort of common sense. You know, we tend to avoid the common sense stuff and just go like, well, if you point them to the attention of this stuff on cults, they're just going to take it down. It's not that simple. They don't just go to cults and go, this guy on YouTube said that this is a Space Marine. We have here that everything Space Marine is not allowed. Please take it down, and it's gone. That's just not it. So we're going to go over what happened, why, and what we can do moving forward. So first, we're going to look at the boy Kitech. Unfortunately, he has been hit on his Colts 3D. He is down to just a mere 5 models. That is very sad. Fortunately, he still has his My Mini Factory. I'm thinking what happened here from the others that we're seeing is the Colts was targeted specifically, and some people proactively remove stuff from their My Mini Factory and Patreon as well. Maybe the Patreon got hit by the verbiage of Imperial Prop War stuff, but it sounds like the Colts 3D stuff was targeted. Seems to all be at the same time. They sort of submitted or sent. I don't know how the process goes, but all these guys got their DMCA notices all at once or in a short period of time. So Kitech made a post on it. I'm actually not logged in right now, but more or less it just, you know, what you would expect to see. So he's got his stuff still available on Patreon, still available on MMF, still has the discount for that. So I would say for the NID side of things, there's not a lot of changes. You know, we're not going to look at what didn't cause it yet, but right now you don't really have to adjust too much. So let's look here down at Prap Wars. So Kitech's just all of his stuff, and his stuff is very close to the original. We all knew that. But apparently still good on My Mini Factory and Patreon. Prap Wars stuff, it sounds like by the verbiage of his situation that he was sort of proactively avoiding some issues that might come up on his My Mini Factory. I don't know, he might have been hit there as well. He did have Space Marine stuff, which tends to be the stuff you want to avoid the most. It's the most difficult if you're going like for replicas that they have big patents on the word Space Marine on Space Marines. So it's just, you know, sort of the bread and butter of the game. So his stuff is down on My Mini Factory and Colts, which is super sad to see. Right now, his Patreon, you can still have access to his full files. So there will be until the end of this month. It's looking like you can go back and get these files that were missing, that you are missing if you had bought them previously on Colts or here. He's obviously going to keep pursuing it. Moving forward, I'm sure he's going to try to avoid some Space Marine stuff and hit things that are less new. The new stuff is always so appealing for newer sculptors, obviously just not giant sculpting companies. It's because you can have a piece of the pie, and we want these guys to get a piece of the pie. The big sculpting companies, we don't want them to be the only ones there. So we'll look at that stuff a little more in a second, but we're going to just keep going through analyzing why this happened, and then we'll go over like what we can do moving forward. So this one just seems pretty straightforward. He has Space Marine stuff. He did not necessarily go above and beyond to make them better or more detailed. It was more or less just attempting to recreate the original, which obviously with the Space Marine is the riskiest. We appreciate the boy doing all the great work with his sculpts. He has come a long way, so glad to hear that he's going to continue his work. And then we're going to look at some of this stuff that's super interesting to me on cults that aren't like the Patreon pages. So there's still lots of these that got, this one is a fun one specifically. This one got hit because of the verbiage, they think, or this person seems to think, and I would agree. The Thick Boy 2.0, we had this linked in another video. It wasn't actually in the video, but it was linked as an alternate option if you wanted to pay for the Ballistus Dreadnought. He changed the name from Ballistus Dreadnought, and I think this one was sort of one of those situations that he named it a Ballistus Dreadnought, and it is different enough that he didn't need to do that. So just avoid the verbiage. That's not going to be your main hitting spot that they're going to be able to fuck you up on. Hence him, who is the BlackRock Miniatures, being back on with the same file. That's a very bold move, but I support it. I think it's a good idea. This is very different from the Ballistus Dreadnought that Games Workshop has released. So I think it's fine to just change the name. They probably hit him for they probably read it right in the DMCA notice that you have used the name of our, figure. You cannot do that. And he's looked at it and decided that it would make the most sense to repost it with a different name. So close some of these tabs here. So yeah, good idea with that. Moving right along, this is a great example on why this stuff isn't necessarily, a lot of people go, well, you're pointing them to this stuff and that's why it's happening. Listen, I don't have that much authority, guys. Nobody does. It's just, we've seen it over the years, and it seems more and more prevalent that what keeps you from getting your stuff pulled as a sculptor is doing it yourself and going above and beyond the sculpts that Games Workshop designs. So you see right here, there's going to be a different base. This is from Stroke My Unicorn, and he has a different base than the GW original, slightly. A slightly different bottom of the model, but for the most part, it's almost an exact replica with just added details, right? He just took it, made it, sculpted it after the original. I don't know if these guys scanned to start with. They'll say they don't, but whatever. He sculpted it after the original and then added the detailing on, and that added detailing is, what makes a big difference in getting your file pulled. Now, obviously, he keeps the name Space Bug of Death Migraine. I don't think he pulled this down. No, this was the original link that we used. So this has been up and fine since it's been put up, and all of Strokes My Unicorn stuff is very, very close to the original. It is made almost, I would say, closer than I would risk if I was a sculptor, but it is made boldly like Io stuff, which is dead on the scaling and the look of the original without trying to add like some flavor, like, a different type of organism or a type of bug, or like, the Western orcs. He doesn't change it in that regard, just adds detailing and makes sure the name is different than the Neuro Tyrant. So perfect example here, and we'll go over to Grim Dark Printing. This is an example of the opposite ends, a very sad place that I kind of regret ever visiting. Early times when you don't know where to find these STLs, it's difficult to find proxies and alternatives, and you have an army that you're trying to build a certain way. You don't want to just throw in like one, all the bugs look a certain way and then one is a different type of bug. It just doesn't fit the aesthetic. So Grimdark Printing, I did go there for a couple of files. They are more or less just take the files from somewhere on the internet that has been previously ripped off, and like a Cults 3D file that was taken down, and they just reposted. It's an exact replica of the original, sometimes lacking, a lot of times even lacking detailing that would separate it from the original, which shows you that it's not necessarily that you are that you're making it different, but you have to be going above and beyond making it better. If you just copy it and have less detailing, less chit and striations for the armor, it's not gonna fly. The stuff from Io and Strokes My Unicorn looks closer to the original probably than some of the grimdark printing stuff does, but the grimdark printing stuff doesn't make any effort. It was just the files exactly as they were. The scaling was all wonky. Again, that shows you that nothing to do with the scaling, which I don't understand why people would affect the scaling. Get the scaling right. They're not going to say, look, it's the same size as this model, therefore it is the model. So these got hit because they are just lazy. They were just lazy. So keep on moving here. This stuff's pretty straightforward. The Forge World stuff, all safe as can be. A lot of them use the same name as the Forge World stuff, so they continue to not worry about, and that makes sense. Forge World is not a very big money maker for them anymore. Why would you order a resin printed model when you could resin print the model yourself? So yeah, this one's pretty straightforward. The Forge World stuff will continue to be easy to get. Things like the files, and this is another one I want to talk about, is some of the stuff where you see a lot of these sculptors that have things that are Tyranid and Space Marine that you might say, wow, these are pretty close to the original and not going above and beyond in the detailing. Not necessarily this one, but a lot of them. This one's kind of there. And they seem to do this other stuff that got Imperial Prop War in trouble, that got that the Grimdark Printing in trouble, that they're close, but they're not attempting this higher detailing. And I would say the answer for that one is pretty plain, that they aren't making new things, right? These are sculptors that have old files that are not attempting the Leviathan stuff. And you see a lot of guys that have these older files. This is the Zoanthropes. These are like dead-on Zoanthrope files. Nothing there. This Maliceptor, I guess the female scepter is not dead on the Maliceptor, but it's really close. This Exocrine right here, I mean, look at this thing. It even has the name Exocrine, so detailed. So it's they're not necessarily going through the effort, and it's not that they can't find this stuff because these people are hiding it so well, or because they're looking for the Leviathan stuff and not stumbling upon it. It's they can find this. They are capable of typing the words Exocrine into Cults 3D. This is a person who's paid for a living. I mean, it took me 5 seconds to find 3 that they could potentially move forward with copyright disputes on. But why at levels of this, they're just going to be popping up everywhere. You can get files of print at this level, and it's just not going to save them or make them any money for how much they're investing into doing it. So the stuff that is targeting Leviathan, we're definitely seeing that getting popped across the board. But you still see a lot of things that are Leviathan-esque that are surviving. This Absolute Sky one, I'd say it's pretty darn close to the original without going above and beyond on the detailing. So I'd say this one might be a little bit risque. Still out there. Absolute Sky, I guess, didn't get hit with anything, which is good. Don't want anyone to get hit with anything. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of this. Don't panic, but the designer is still here. And this was this was another obvious one. This is the Terminators that came up. Let's see if this is most recently posted. 624, no. So he had a different set of Terminators that were the Leviathan ones and made tons of money, but they were exact replicas. They were beautiful. I mean, awesome. But, that sort of stuff is just, that's what's going to happen to it, right? It's just, there's no way to avoid it. So there is a way to avoid it. Once you've posted the file and made it that similar without going above and beyond. But we're going to go over now the ways you can avoid that stuff. So first we're going to look at what we can do as printing fiends when we see a few of these files disappear. So we see our Terminators gone, and there's still going to always be those standard Terminator files that are named after various meat cuts. But then if you just search Terminator in here, the repository is so huge now because they do not have the money to continuously pull these things down. And even when people don't use the word Terminator in their names, I don't know why people bother doing that, because if you search Terminator with a search repository like this and click one of these files, then, and hundreds of other people do it, it will move it up in the search. So even if there are files that are not named Terminator, and they are very popular files, they will end up higher in the search engine. Therefore, easy to find for you, easy to find for Games Workshop. Does that mean they're going to disappear? No, that's not what they're doing. They're not just pulling down every file. They just don't have the money. They're running a business. It's very obvious. They're running a business, and so replacing this stuff, Terminator, easy. I would go probably with the designer we were just looking at, the one that made the other Terminators. He has a different Terminator file with flamers on them. You just take that file and then just stick different Terminator arms that are available all over here. Let's look at a few of the other ones. I know the the gaunt. What's that called? The barb gaunt. I know this one was a little bit tough specifically. This was like, it was Kai Tech and Kai Tech alone that had this one. So for stuff like that, I'd probably just stick with, it's only the Space Marine stuff side that really needs replacing, because Kai Tech stuff and these other guys' stuff is still available on My Mini Factory, the Patreon. So I would go for the Patreon for that one, or My Mini Factory. And as for the other Space Marine stuff, there are so many options out there on these recreated files. The new ones, they still have their options out there. What was it? Let's look at one of these. Terminator Captain. So we're going to have these bad ones still available, of course. And as for the good ones, it's looking like your best option, I would say, moving forward, until you find, because it's hit or miss with these stuff that are close to the replicas. If you're looking for stuff that's close, that has a chance of getting pulled down, I just sit and wait, search around like this, find something that suits you best, or perhaps something like Gamma Space Marines. These are going to have really over-the-top detailing. They'll look a little different, but I find like these, they're not so different that it looks like they're different. You get a commander in your army that just has better detailing than the other guys. It's cool. It's not like, oh, the whole army's ruined, they all have to be better detailing. So I'd go for like an alternate creators files and fill in those gaps of stuff that you can't quite fill in while you wait, or maybe search for certain ones that you don't want to fill in the gaps with, that you are looking for a closer to the original file. So super easy workarounds for all of that stuff. And then I want to look at what the sculptors can do. I think this one's like a touchy subject. Oh, don't tell them what they can do. You're the one that cost them that. But like, listen, we're all in this together. We're on one side. I don't want to put Games Workshop on the other side, but I'll say we're on a side. We're on a side together. We don't necessarily have an enemy. The enemy is money, right? Our wallets are our allies, and we are trying to protect them. So that is the main goal here. And what we want from sculptors is them to make great files and make money from us, so that we can continue to get great sculpts. So it's like a win-win situation there. So I don't know how people put me on the other side of them, but I am with sculptors. So let's look at how we can avoid that. I think first and foremost, you want to always rely on your originality and improvements made to the sculpts, not your ability to make up a funny word that sounds like the model without actually saying its name. Looking at you, Jean thieves. And if you want to truly be safe, just add a flavor onto your army, like Western, Pirate, Underwater, Orcs. And the real truth of it all is that the more original and yours you make the sculpt, the safer it's going to be. Keep the scaling right, and you can get super creative with so many other things while keeping the staple features of a unit, like Gazgul's quad gun barrel and his claw and his robot body. All three of those are on the aforementioned sculpts from the Western, from Gammick and them. Those are all on those sculpts, on their different sculpts from different creators, but you can see those staple things on them to make them look like the original model without any risk. I mean, there's absolutely no risk from them. So, and you don't need to be a big sculpting company to make a flavored, you don't need a whole army of Western orcs. People will like if you just make one clan of, chaos demons with a different flavor to them, one model like that. People enjoy that stuff. They really do. They will get you the money, and the people will figure out what the model is. As long as you make it close enough to where it looks at it, you don't need to, I'll do the video on it. It's like the people will call it what it is. They'll get to your page, they'll download it. The goal is to just make the model yours, put the effort into the detailing and making it above and beyond, not getting it as close as you can to the original and then sort of stopping short. It's sort of like their model is like a starting point, and you can get to there or close to there, but then you've got to branch off. You've got to add things that make it yours. And sometimes it's as simple as just like little flavoring on the terrain, or like a little cloak, or just added striations on the chitin, apparently, like as you can see from all the ones that didn't get hit. It's not like, they're unaware of Iobutov. He's the most sold, probably the most money made creator on Colts 3D. 92.1 thousand downloads, and so much of his stuff is $50, $40. So, and his bugs are the same as ever. You know, they're all here, all the ones you've previously thought of. Look at, we've even added some here. So his list is thoroughly unaffected. And that is because though they look exactly like the original, the poses, he has no risk. The poses are exactly like the originals. Everything about the armor and the weapons, he doesn't make any difference. He just makes it better. That's it. And that apparently is enough. And I'm fine with that. I mean, look at the effort he put in. So that's where we stand right now with things. And I think moving forward, it's super easy to find a space, especially with the information, rather than like getting discouraged about it. Like, oh man, some sculptors got hit. Things are bad. You shouldn't have done this. They shouldn't have done this. Fuck games. Like, no, we can take this information, analyze it, and there's a lot of positives here. Like, there's so many sculptors that have made new Leviathan stuff and that are clearly in their eyes that they would rather have not exist, because it would be more money in GW's pocket and more money out of ours, which is the important thing, our enemy spending the money. So in order to keep the money in the sculptors and our pockets, make them detailed, make them amazing, keep them the same, same posing, the same scaling, and just affect, obviously you can change the posing, but just affect the little things that aren't necessarily stable to the unit, and make it yours. Just make it yours. And moving forward, I always want to support these small sculptors. A lot of people get on me about like, oh, this file doesn't look that good, but like, I appreciate guys that are putting in the effort, like like myself. So get back out there, keep sculpting, do not stop, and like and subscribe for more 40K 3D printed content.